Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to today's Daily Devotional. So, our Daily Devotional today is coming from an article that I found yesterday, I think it was. Let me bring the article up here. There we go. It's an article off of CNN. It's about a grave that was found in Finland, a medieval grave. They even have pictures. I try to take off any pictures and stuff on the live stream. There's a picture of the whatever. The inhabitant of a medieval grave in Finland may have been non-binary, a new study finds. Now, non-binary means not male or female. And the reason why this article kind of I read through it, and we're not going to necessarily read the whole thing. Oh, there's the picture. It's not an actual legitimate picture. It's just a painting or something. So this grave was found in 1968. They thought it was a warrior woman because there was the presence of both jewelry and pristine sword in the grave. A new analysis of the grave's contents has produced a new hypothesis. The person buried there may have been non-binary. The findings suggest that non-binary identity, that is, when a person identifies as neither male nor female, may have existed in medieval Europe. The elaborate manner of burial suggests that non-binary people may have occupied a special role in medieval society worthy of respect, researchers wrote. So they talk a little bit about the burial, the symbolism of the things involved. The individual was not strictly associated with either gender, but instead something else. They go through and talk a little bit about kind of some of their reasonings behind the symbolism of what they're buried with. Apparently, that's a thing. You know, that there's a lot of symbolism apparently in that. They looked further into the grave. They found some furs and some brooches and so forth. That's what caused scientists to assume the woman buried there was a woman. But the sword placed on top of the body gave the team pause. It showed no signs of battle wear. It was missing a hilt. That's unusual for the time period. And the state of the sword and its positioning in the grave lends it a less violent and genderless symbolism, the researchers said. Which, again, I'm not an expert in that, so that could very well be the case. The sword's positioning was a clue. An analysis of the only usable fragment of femur left in the grave found evidence of an XXY karyotype, consistent with what is known today as Klinefelter syndrome. It's a genetic condition in which a male child is born with an extra chromosome, and so it can result in some more feminine-like features. The researchers could only analyze the ancient DNA and the items the person was buried with, so they couldn't confirm with certainty that this person identified as non-binary. Being non-binary isn't based on biological sex, but a person's understanding of their gender identity and chromosomes alone cannot reveal someone's gender identity. So I think it's interesting that the researchers and whatnot who are involved in this grave, okay, they think that this person could have had an extra X chromosome, okay, and it's okay, you know, that happens sometimes. You know, you have mutations and whatnot that happen, maybe, you know, for whatever reason. But they're speculating that because of this person didn't identify as a male or a female. I think that's really interesting that they're extrapolating that. And then so that was half the article. The other half of the article then kind of provides a commentary, a look down your nose at people who think that non-binary and other sexual identities is weird or whatnot. Basically, you kind of feel like you're being lectured to, at least I did. Non-binary people have existed for centuries. Non-binary identity isn't new or exclusive to Western culture. Indigenous people in North America long occupied social roles that stood outside of the gender binary, existing between male and female. These First Nations and Native American people were ascribed special gifts based on their identity, all useful to the preservation and survival of their people. And in India, a third gender, Hijra, has been acknowledged since at least the 8th century BC, as per evidence cited by historians. Hijras today are people who may be transgender, intersex, or non-binary, but dress and behave in ways perceived as feminine. While they face discrimination, Hijras have also played important roles in their communities, usually in a creative or ceremonial capacity. There are other examples in medieval times of people who lived outside the gender binary. Joan of Arc, for one, and that's debatable, but yeah, Joan of Arc, PhD candidate, medieval European history. Though the French martyr is identified as a woman in most writings about her life, she dressed in traditionally male clothes, which later contributed to her being burned at the stake. Understanding more about the history of trans and non-binary people might disrupt the conservative worldview that there have only been two genders throughout all of human history. Historians know that not to be true. Non-binary and transgender people are often ostracized for seemingly rejecting the binary ideas of gender. The discovery of a person who may have been non-binary over 1,000 years ago and was likely highly respected by their community adds a new entry to the history of non-binary people. So I immediately thought about the fact that they take this they take this grave. In this grave is a person who has an extra X chromosome, so they may have had more feminine features even though they were male. Then they extrapolate from the stuff that was there, okay, from the stuff that they had, that it's possible this person presented themselves as not a male or a female. Okay, could be. Okay, could be. A lot of extrapolation there. But then they take the after that is nothing in this is about that particular point. Now it's just all about non-binary people have existed for centuries. So it's almost as if they take this one example and they extrapolate a means of normalizing non-binary, transgender, and so forth, as if this is something that is perfectly normal. This is something that's been around for centuries. Well, that's great. What does the Bible say? The Bible says, and I'm going to quote Jesus this time, in Matthew 19 and in verse 4. Of course, this is in a context in which Jesus was asked about divorce. Jesus says, "Have you not read that he who made them at the beginning made them male and female?" He didn't make them non-binary. He didn't make them transgender. He didn't make them anything else, just male and female. In addition to the warnings about activities such as homosexuality and so forth, we have an understanding that just because there are accounts in history of situations where certain people may have identified outside of the male or female binary condition, that doesn't make it okay. And it kind of feels like this article is attempting to, again, lecture you or kind of look down your nose at people who think differently and say you shouldn't think that these things are wrong or are different because they're normal. This is the way history, and these people are exalted. They're individuals who are ascribed special gifts based on their identity. Now, having said that, I'm not saying that we shouldn't respect all people, okay? We should respect all people. Doesn't matter what the background is, and by respect, I mean show care and concern for that person, okay? We should respect all people. We shouldn't be disrespectful. However, I can respect someone and still not respect or approve of their lifestyle. Okay, there's a big difference between the two. I can respect a person. I can show respect to a person. I can have conversations with a person that are polite. I can show love for a person, show love in the sense of caring about a person's soul, and not respect or approve of their lifestyle. And I think it's important, we have these types of articles that for many people, it's the idea that, oh, well, it's almost as if the article thinks that people are just going to go, oh, well, apparently, these things have been around forever, so we should look at transgender and non-binary and stuff as perfectly, absolutely normal. The history of trans and non-binary, this is the quote right here. This is it. Might disrupt the conservative worldview that there have only been two genders throughout human history. Okay, let me be perfectly clear here. There only ever has been two genders throughout human history, male and female. Even today, there are still only two genders. Just because people are making up new genders or new genderless categories doesn't mean biologically that there are any more than two genders. And I think this is a very odd statement. There have only, this will disrupt the conservative worldview that there have only been two genders throughout. Biologically, there are still only two genders. End of story. You can identify however you want to. You can identify as a unicorn or whatever. That doesn't mean it's real. You can make up your own personal category for what you are to give yourself a little bit of personal type of things. Like it's almost like they're creating these new gender pronouns and gender titles or labels, almost like they're tattoos, to kind of distinguish myself from everybody else. But they're still imaginary. They're made up. Okay? There's male and there is female. Biologically, that has always been true. Biologically, that will never not be true. And the fact that non-binary transgender people are often ostracized for seemingly rejecting binary ideas of gender and so forth, well, ostracized, I don't think we should discriminate against people who, don't identify as male or female. Treat them some differently than we would treat any other person. However, that doesn't mean I'm going to approve of their lifestyle. And I think it's important that we, on both of those points, that we recognize that there is an importance to what God's Word says. He made them male and female. That's it. And regarding the creation of mankind, He made them male and female. Are there unique circumstances every now and then where there's a mutation or something and somebody ends up with an extra chromosome? Yeah, that happens. Okay, that happens in biology. Okay, but that doesn't change anything. We were made male and female. And as Christians, first of all, we have to stand for the truth, that there is only male and female. That's not only a truth of God, that's a scientific, biological fact. There's only male and female. But also, that we are very careful in how we treat people who don't believe the way we do. That we're careful in how we approach individuals. Because we don't want to come off as hypocrites by ostracizing, okay? And again, I understand people who have these types of things are often ostracized in many societies. I understand. But we can't just treat people who are non-binary and transgender differently than we would treat individuals who are involved in fornication, or involved in adultery, or involved in lying or stealing. It's sinful, But does that mean, therefore, that only that non-binary and transgender people are worthy of my disgust? And so we have to be very careful about that. All sin is sin. As far as God's concerned, it doesn't make any difference if it's lying or non-binary and transgender. But in the end, we have to treat these people with respect. We have to acknowledge they have a soul, okay? And we should love that soul. Jesus died for that soul, even though they a lot of times aren't interested. But at the same time, we can show respect, we can show deference to them without showing approval for their lifestyles. And so we have to be very careful not to be hypocrites, first of all, and also to show the proper regard for for all souls that we should. So I just thought that was kind of I saw that article, and I saw that at the end of the article there, that specific quote, that conservative worldview, that there's only been two genders throughout human history. Historians know that's not true. Well, historians aren't biologists, are ya? So it just really kind of it's an interesting narrative about the propaganda involved in trying to normalize transgender, non-binary people. And we just have to be aware that this kind of stuff is out there, and be aware that there are going to be people who might actually be convinced by something like this, that, oh, well, I guess that means it's okay then. When Jesus quotes from the Old Testament, have you not read? And again, it's in a context about divorce. Have you not read that he who made them at the beginning made them male and female? All right, that's the Daily Devotional for you today. Lord willing, we'll have our Daily Devotional tomorrow at 6:30. So I hope to see you all then. Thanks, everybody.